So UFC 267 takes place at the end of October, and Yamblochovic will make his second title defense against his number one contender Glover Teixeira in the main event of that card. But no other fights on that card have been announced whatsoever. Yamblochovic versus Glover Teixeira is the only one that has been announced, and it is the headliner of that card. So I thought, why not make a card builder video today for UFC 267 and fill in all of these empty boxes on my screen. On my side over here, you'll see the co-main event position. Below me right now, between the three boxes, will be the main card. Below them will be the prelims, and below that one at the very bottom row will be the early prelims, and I've got all of the opponents that I want to take fights on this card hidden around the perimeter of the screen. So let's waste no more time and start working on this card. Of course, you've got Yamblochovic versus Glover Teixeira, great matchup, champion versus number one contender. I feel like you can't really make anything above this on the card because they are light heavyweights. Yamblochovic, I feel like, can headline a card on his own right now, especially after his win against Israel Adesanya. And plus, the only people you could really put above them on the card would be the heavyweights, and Ngannou versus Derek Lewis, which we don't actually have right now because they're making Derek Lewis versus Cyril Gane. So you can't have anything above Yamblochovic versus Glover Teixeira. I feel like it's going to be the main event of this card. Let's start working on the rest of it while I spit that pathetic piece of shit out of my mouth, whatever the fuck that was. Either way, let's get to it. The co-main event over here. I feel like we need to theme this card. And I'm a very big fan of theming cards. And before we even get into making these fights, I'm going to show you guys the level of matchmaker I am. This is going to be a great card. It's not going to be an amazing, oh my god, I can't believe this card has been made kind of card. But I'm going to show you how to have a card that is so solid but does not cost you a penny for the UFC to make. So, the co-main event of this card, in my opinion, in October, we've waited long enough for Aljo to be healed up from his surgery. I need to see Aljamain Sterling versus Petr Yan 2, the rematch in the co-main event of this card. I think it would be an amazing one, and also I'm trying to do a theme of fighters from the eastern hemisphere of the world, in the eastern continent. I feel like Aljo versus Yan would be a great co-main event. You've got the Polish guy, Yamblochovic, and the Russian, Petr Yan, on the same card. Similar demographic and similar area and time zone as well, which is a big deal for pay-per-views. So I'd like to see Aljamain Sterling versus Petr Yan as the co-main event of this card. Moving on to the feature fight position of this card, which I believe should be taken up in a 5-round bout, because we're starting to do these 5-round feature fights a little bit more often nowadays. I think I need to see another 5-round feature fight between, and this is a matchup I also really need to see, between Jiří Prochazka and Alexander Rakic. A great matchup in the light heavyweight division. I like the fact that I can put it on the same card as Yamblochovic versus Glover Teixeira as well, because if anything happens to the main event, you can say, hey Jiří, take this fight with Alexander Rakic. If you say no, we're cutting you from the UFC. I'm fucking sick of contenders sitting on their fucking ass. I'm waiting for champions. It's so annoying. I'm not waiting till April to see Jiří Prochazka fight again. That's final. But anyway, Jiří Prochazka versus Alexander Rakic, put it on the same card, and that way you can say, hey Jiří, take this fight with Rakic. If anything happens to the main event, you can be the guy that fills in and fights for the belt and saves the card in the main event of a pay-per-view. And I think that will make him change his mind about taking a Rakic fight real quick, in my opinion. You know what else will change his mind? If you say, hey Jiří, are you going to take the fight? No? Okay, if Rakic says yes, we're giving him a title shot and you're sitting out for nothing. And that's what we're going to do, because I need to see Jiří Prochazka versus Alexander Rakic to determine a true number one contender. Feature fight position, Prochazka versus Rakic, great fight. Let's move on to another fight on the card, which is Marina Rodriguez versus none other than, not that man, where is this person? It is Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Amazing stuff. Let's make it. Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Marina Rodriguez, two top strawweight contenders. Notice a theme here. Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Yamblochovic, getting the European block going on here. We got the Polish power on the card, the Polish double act in action immediately. Keep the theme going. Great matchup in the strawweight women's division. Amazing stuff. And plus, Marina Rodriguez called out Joanna Jędrzejczyk. And it would be a big comeback fight for Joanna Jędrzejczyk as well. And plus, diversity on the main card. I'm ticking all boxes here, okay? Moving on, which I believe I just spoiled for you, to the opener of the main card, which I believe should be Bryce Mitchell versus Giga Chikadze. From Georgia, similar area, similar time zone, you get what I'm doing here. Bryce Mitchell, American representative on the card versus Giga Chikadze. 2 ranked guys in the featherweight division, and plus 2 ranked guys in a division where they're actually big names considering where they're ranked, because I believe both of these men have around 200,000 Instagram followers. Very big name. I feel like they should be on the main card of a pay-per-view. Open it up real good. I think it's bound to be a great fight because it's either domination in each way. I think that's a great way to open up main cards. Unless you're giving O'Malley an absolute can to open up a main card, this is the next best thing. 2 dominant guys in 2 different areas, so you literally guarantee domination. Either Giga Chikadze schools Bryce Mitchell on the feet, or Bryce Mitchell dominates Giga Chikadze on the ground. And I think either way, that means the winner will be looking really good after a dominant performance. Either way it goes, even if it's 50-50, it's going to be dominant with these kind of style matchups. So the winner of that fight looks really good on the main card of a pay-per-view, and then you can start working them to get them towards the top 10 of their division. Giga Chikadze, Bryce Mitchell, opener of the main card. Look at that sexy main card that I've made so far. But we're not done yet. We're moving on to the prelims of the card, which I believe should take place between the headliner of the prelims, Marcin Taibura, again, Polish power on the card, need a Polish heavyweight, versus a Russian heavyweight to fill in as Yamblochowic's teammate, I guess, on this card as well, Alexander Volkov versus Marcin Taibura. I made a video not too long ago saying that Alexander Volkov should maybe take on Augusto Sakai. I was wrong completely. I like this matchup. Alexander Volkov, Marcin Taibura, similar schedules. Volkov didn't really take too much damage against Cyril Gane, and Gane is turning around 6 weeks later. So if I was Volkov, I'd stay active and take this fight with Marcin Taibura. Amazing headliner of the prelims. In my opinion, the headliner of the prelims of a pay-per-view should be like a bad fight night main event. At worst, sorry. It should be like a weak fight night main event. And Volkov versus Taibura would be a weak fight night main event. And I think that's what the headliner of the prelim should be. Great big fight with big names, getting people tuning in to the fight before the main card starts. So you can start generating some in real-time pay-per-view buys after they watch the headliner of the prelims. Then they want to watch the main card and continue their night of enjoyment of fights. I say let's make Volkov versus Taibura headliner of the prelims. Moving on down the card, and this one is very, very conditional. If this person wins their next fight against Jeremy Stephens, turn them right back around against Damir Ismagulov. Mateusz Gamrot, Damir Ismagulov, co-main event of the prelims of this card. Amazing fight to take place as well. Really looking forward to that one if it does happen down the line. And I think the winner of that one could be given a number 15 spot, because I know for a fact that if Mateusz Gamrot beats Jeremy Stephens, even though Stephens is not ranked whatsoever at lightweight, he will ask for a ranked opponent. So I think he's not going to get a ranked opponent. He did technically lose to Guram Kutsteledze. I know he didn't really, but he did officially, on paper, lose to Guram Kutsteledze, so that's going to stop him jumping way up those rankings as if he were to get a win over Guram earlier in his career and on that win streak of 3. I feel like Mateusz Gamrot, if he beats Jeremy Stephens, one more fight outside the rankings, the winner gets the number 15 position. Mateusz Gamrot, Damir Ismagulov, great matchup. Again, Polish guy, Mateusz Gamrot. I'm keeping the theme here, guys, okay? The Polish takeover will take place on this card, and I'm keeping it real cheap as well. Moving on to another fight that needs to take place on the prelims of the card, a flyweight bout between Matt Schnell and none other than David Dvorak, in my opinion. Great matchup in the flyweight division. Both guys really talented. Matt Schnell took a little bit of damage against Rodrigo Bontorin not too long ago, but I feel like he wants to stay active, get back in there. He didn't get KO'd or anything like that, and he didn't really get a orbital fracture or really bad swelling or a broken hand or anything like that. He looked good at the end of the fight, even though he did take some damage. I feel like he needs to get back in there against David Dvorak, who took no damage in his last fight against some random guy. Don't even know what his name was, but I think it was a short notice replacement or something like that. Bahamondes or something. I don't even know. Took on a random guy that came into the UFC, finished him with ease. He's got good wins before that as well against some decent opponents in the UFC. I feel like Matt Schnell versus David Dvorak is a great matchup. Plus, are you noticing a trend again here? David Dvorak. Where's he from? Czech Republic. Oh yeah, Yuri Prochazka. I'm just too good at this stuff, in all honesty. Moving on to the prelim opener of the card, which I believe should be Mr. Krzysztof Jotko taking on a man by the name of Edmen Shabazian. Okay? Great matchup again, Krzysztof Jotko. You're noticing the theme. Edmund Shabazian, of course, originally Armenian. Maybe we can tap into that market and get Armenia from actually Armenia rather than America tuning in to the card to see Edmund Shabazian walk out with their flag. Great fight to open up the prelims. Both guys need a little bit more time off, but that works out fine because it's at the end of October. They still got a little bit of time. Edmund Shabazian, Krzysztof Jotko, great matchup to make. Edmund Shabazian needs a drop outside the rankings as well because he's been taking on monsters and he just doesn't seem too ready for those top guys yet, so I think a step back against Krzysztof Jotko is a great matchup. And I know people will be saying this, Jotko doesn't deserve a ranked opponent. Listen, by the time this fight happens in October, middleweights will have moved above Shabazian in the rankings, meaning he will deteriorate in the rankings. Plus, if Jotko wins against Shabazian, I know what you're going to say, disaster. We don't want Jotko in the rankings, he's an older guy. However, people have beaten Jotko. So by making Jotko have a chance to jump up the rankings, not only do you maybe get Edmund Shabazian a win and keep him in those rankings as a young prospect that can move on and be something later in his career, you also give a chance to the people who have beaten Krzysztof Jotko to also rise up the rankings as well, like Sean Strickland. That'll work really well for him, so I think that matchup needs to be made. Great stuff. Moving on to the early prelim headliner, which I believe should be Kennedy Nzechukwu, the human heavy bag, versus Marcin Prachnio in the light heavyweight division. Both guys had finishes in their last fight, I think on the same card as well, I believe. I think Prachnio was on the earlier part of the prelims and Nzechukwu was headlining it. So let's do a headliner of the early prelims. Kennedy Nzechukwu, Marcin Prachnio, Mr. Polish again. We're getting them all on the card all at once. We're taking over Europe with one fucking card to rule them all. And Polish MMA is going to reignite itself at the sight of this card. Because by putting this many Polish people on one card, you at least guarantee that one of them's going to fucking win. So, Marcin Prachnio, Kennedy Nzechukwu, two guys on win streaks right now in the light heavyweight division. Let's match them up together before giving them a ranked opponent. Moving on to another fight on the card. Nicholas Dalby versus Jake Matthews. Great scrap. Both guys coming off losses. I think put it on the early prelims. Again, I'm keeping it cheap here. I'm keeping it cheap. We're not paying these guys crazy amounts, but we are going to have an amazing card with a lot of good contenders. Nicholas Dalby, Jake Matthews, of course, Dalby from Copenhagen, Denmark, so he can bring that to the game. I don't know where this card is taking place. I hope in Poland. I would really like that for the way I've built this card. But Nicholas Dalby, Jake Matthews, great matchup to make on the card. Moving on, let's get this done. You've got this woman here versus this woman here, who I do know is Liana Jujua. So Liana Jujua should take on this opponent here that I fucking forgot the name of. But she's a women's flyweight who's coming off a loss. I just can't remember her name because I made this a day ago. So, random woman versus Liana Jujua. Honestly, I'd watch Liana Jujua fucking wrestle a paper bag in the middle of a cage, in all honesty. She's that hot. But let's make that matchup happen. Liana Jujua on the card. Georgian represent. You've got also Giga Chikadze on the card. I'm keeping it themed, as you know. Last fight on the card to open it all up. Another European showdown at light heavyweight. Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, Polish himself again, versus Nikolai Nagumnoyanu, I believe his surname is pronounced. Great matchup. Great card. Dunsky. Don't ask me any more questions. Cheap, affordable, solid, consistent. One more spare fight, you could do Alexander Doskolchuk versus Aori Kwaleng, just to put as the early prelim opener, just in case a fight falls off, then you can shimmy everything up and fill it up again. I always like to have one extra fight on the line, just in case anything happens to any of the matchups, but I think this is a done card, and you can take my money. Well, I'm not going to pay, but, you know, it's a great card. And it's also a great card, and it doesn't cost too much. I'm a great matchmaker, I know. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Toodle pip.